We are Newsroom. Hello and welcome once again from Johannesburg here in South Africa. My name, of course, Evan Jansen. This show is always live, broadcast from our studios right here in Auckland Park in Johannesburg. Now, weekday mornings between 9 and 12. We're also streaming live on YouTube, so you can watch us anywhere in the world, or you can watch us back on demand on the same facility. Today, we ask you a question. Here in South Africa, the Labour Federation, COSATU, will be having their elective Congress this weekend. What are your expectations of this week's COSATU conference is the question today at SABC Newsroom. That's where you can interact with us and give us your thoughts. Monday morning news update with Elvis President now.
Thank you, Evan. Let's take a look at all your headlines. COSATU's elective conference starts in Midrand, north of Johannesburg today. The Federation's president, Dumo Dlamini, says escalation of tensions between leaders is weakening the ANC's tripartite alliance. The Tshwane University of Technology has indefinitely postponed examinations at its Shoshanguve campus north of Pretoria following renewed student violence. And emergency teams in Myanmar say that the death toll from a landslide in Kachin state could rise to over 200. Those are some of your top stories this morning, but first, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis, and thank you very much. Good morning to you at home as well. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
The award goes to...
Wait for Kneecap lights up the stage at the South African Sports Awards, winning Sportsman of the Year, Sports Star of the Year, and the People's Choice Awards. Also, metronomic Djokovic keeps the trophy count ticking as he beats Roger Federer to win his fourth ATP World Tour final in a row. And that's what we've got for you in the sports. Make sure you stick around for that 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Right now, your top story this hour. COSATU's elective conference starts in Midrand, north of Johannesburg today. The Federation's president, Dumo Dlamini, says that escalation of tensions between leaders is weakening the ANC's tripartite alliance. The conference will be the first without its biggest former affiliate, NUMSA, and former General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi.
Dumo Dlamini says since his re-election in 2012, the past 3 years have been the most difficult.
It has bruised a lot of us. Some of us have fallen on the way because of it.
Among those who have fallen, Zwelinzima Vavi, COSATU's first General Secretary to be expelled. The events before that decision exposed deep divisions, some which played out in court. The fallout cut deep. From factory workers to founder members watched in awe.
I wish this did not happen in our lifetime, so that at least we did not live to witness this horror. It's horrible. We never thought at any stage that COSATU would find itself as disunited as it is today.
For the first time in COSATU's history, it expelled an affiliate, and it happened to be the biggest. NUMSA walked away with 340,000 members, plunging COSATU's membership to just over 1.8 million. Serious introspection is expected over the next 4 days. Whoever walks through these doors as the new leadership of COSATU has a momentous task ahead of them. Not only do they have to unite its affiliate, but also have to inspire confidence that this is the federation to belong to, especially in light of its former General Secretary being part of a workers' summit which could pave the way for the establishment of a new federation. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, early on, SABC spoke to COSATU's president, Dumo Dlamini, who said that the federation is not facing a crisis of relevance, but rather a crisis in the nature of the economy. Dlamini says the reason the union members have decreased is because employers fire workers once they join the unions.
It's not a crisis of relevance. It's the nature of the economy we're facing. As I've just made an example, that other employers would fire workers immediately they know that they want to join a union. So the importance of trade unions is even more relevant right now, because those workers do not enjoy the protection of the labor laws of this country, which is given by trade unions, which are organizing at the workplace, which are ensuring that they represent workers at the collective bargaining structures. That is under threat. The collective bargaining structures are under threat in South Africa and in the world over, which is why workers must unite to defend themselves.
With that in mind, workers can ill afford to have disunity among a trade union federation that they look to save them from a number of those dire situations. So let's speak a little bit about that unity now and perhaps the lack thereof in COSATU. It hasn't been a very good year for you, has it been? Absolutely. We have been going through a tumultuous past 4 years to date, working to hold an organization together when it was going through attacks from within, from outside, even from outside this country, South Africa. COSATU has been fielding a range of attacks because others feel that this COSATU needs to be a political party so that it contest elections for the workers, which is a weird suggestion that has failed in many countries. Others feel that COSATU is wrong to be in an alliance with the ANC because they are not benefiting from it. Yes, true, but not true. This alliance will be the one that have propelled us to where we are better than what we were in 1994. And we have to strengthen it. But indeed, we have been riddled with misunderstandings from within, leading to a very historic, painful decision that had to be taken to expel one of our own due to the constitution of our organization. That is exactly what I'd like to zone in on. You're not quite out of the woods yet when it comes to that matter. I believe legal action possibly still on the cards for Mr. Zwelinzima Mavavi. Look, the matter relating to the appeals will be reported to Congress, and Congress will close that matter, whatever direction it takes. But Congress must close that matter because they have now pronounced publicly they have abandoned their right to appeal. We had prepared for that to happen, but they seem to have abandoned that. Whether there shall be any legal challenge following the matters relating to our former General Secretary, again, I don't want to venture into that space because what we are busy with right now, we are uniting our federation. We're ensuring that we put our systems in place so that going forward we do not experience the administrative glitches that have caused us to be in the situation we found ourselves now.
Well, some analysts have suggested that COSATU currently is in a paralysis. So we're asking you the question this morning, and you can see it right now on your screen. What is your expectations from this COSATU Congress that's coming up this week, starting today? Your expectations of this week's COSATU conference? Let us know what's on your mind. Use the Twitter page as well as the Facebook page. Meanwhile, the SACP General Secretary, Bladen Zimande, has lashed out at the media, claiming it's advocating the demise of the tripartite alliance. He says the Communist Party has no intention of breaking away from the ANC and the alliance.
Closing ranks around the SACP General Secretary, the annual augmented Central Committee meeting from branches to national leaders. Zimande did not mention attacks on him, but lashed out at the media, claiming
the Central Committee noted and actually expressed its strong disapproval but determination to actually deal with factionalist activity that threatens to put very serious stresses on our alliance at a time when we need a more united alliance.
Zimande mentioned problems between the ANC and SACP in Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal. Meetings will be held in all provinces to diffuse tensions.
Unless we assist those comrades, we might actually find ourselves with a very dysfunctional alliance, something that is not in the interests of our movement.
Ahead of the 2016 local government elections, alliance partners are unanimous on the importance of unity. Ntantlakatlani, SABC News, Binoni.
Now, for the latest on the COSATU Congress, we now cross live to our reporter Tumale Mushlali, who is in Midrand, where the conference is taking place. A very good morning to you, Tumale.
Well, a very good morning to you, Elvis, there in the studio. Well, it's all systems go here in Midrand at the Gallagher Estate, and this is where the COSATU's Congress will be happening. As I speak to you right now, delegates are busy making their way into the building, preparing for the start of COSATU's Congress. The registration process is underway. Behind me, a stage has been set up, as you could see. This is where COSATU's leadership will be taking the podium and addressing the delegates here amid a myriad of challenges that the Congress of COSATU unions now faces. As we've heard just a moment ago, COSATU President Stu Motlamini also laying out the challenges that face the Congress of South African Trade Unions. Of course, at the heart of the matter is the expulsion of NUMSA, which is the biggest, one of the biggest affiliates in COSATU, over 300,000 members. And what this means both politically and from a practical standpoint, we see that COSATU is feeling that it is under siege. And why the COSATU says that it is under siege, it feels as if though the union is, the Trade Union Federation is facing challenges where it lies on the issue of unity. Unity being one of the key instruments used by COSATU. In the past, we've seen COSATU being able to mobilize tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of its affiliates in solidarity whenever one of its affiliates had challenges. So when you see this situation whereby one of the biggest unions has now been ejected from COSATU, it raises questions about whether they are all pulling in the same direction. So these are some of the issues that will be raised and highlighted here at the Congress, and some of the questions that delegates will have to seek answers to here in Midrand at Gallagher Estate.
Tumahole, thank you so much for that update, and we'll cross to you later to find out what's happening as the Congress continue. Meanwhile, President Jacob Zuma has urged the Jewish community to continue playing a prominent role in the country in building a non-racial South Africa. He was addressing a South African Jewish Board of Deputies biannual national conference in Johannesburg.
A gathering of Jewish community in South Africa. They meet every 2 years to discuss issues of common interest and concern. International guests, politicians, and ordinary people attended the conference. They were urged to play a key role in shaping the country's future.
We call upon the Jewish community to participate actively as we implement the National Development Plan towards the goal of building a truly united, non-racial and non-sexist and prosperous South Africa.
South Africa's struggle has produced luminaries like Dennis Goldberg, a Rivonia trialist, and first Chief Justice Arthur Chalkerson. But this community says it's concerned about what it calls new anti-Semitism.
We condemn terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, which have absolutely no intention of living alongside a Jewish state. And we know this because they say it all the time. They continue to call for the destruction of Israel.
President Zuma reiterated South Africa's stance of a two-state solution to the Middle East crisis.
We believe that the establishment of the State of Palestine will lay a solid foundation for lasting peace in the Middle East. We urge our Jewish community to remain seized with these efforts and to also make their contribution in bringing about a peaceful Middle East. South Africa has something to offer in the promotion of peace and tolerance in the world.
South Africa was urged to take an active role in facilitating dialogue in the Israeli-Palestinian question. Mzondi Lembech, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Tshwane University of Technology has indefinitely postponed all the exams at its Soshanguve campus north of Pretoria. Now this follows renewed student violence, during which 3 halls and a security vehicle were set alight on Saturday. The SRC has distanced itself from the violence. TUT management says further announcements will be made today. Emergency teams in Myanmar say that a death toll from a landslide in Kachin state could rise to over 200, but the hope is dwindling, though, that any of the estimated 100 people still missing will be found alive. Rescue workers had recovered 104 bodies when the search was suspended on Sunday night. The mines and dump sites for debris are rife with hazards and landslides and are not uncommon, though rarely this deadly. Many of the miners were sleeping in huts when the landslide occurred. It's unclear what triggered the landslide in the remote and mountainous region that is almost entirely off limits to foreigners. Safety measures at the mines and surrounding dumping sites are minimal.
The SABC News will bring you comprehensive coverage of Pope Francis' visit to Africa. We'll report on his trip from Nairobi, Kenya to Kampala, Uganda. Don't miss the historical event. SABC News team.
Pope Francis says he is looking forward to his maiden visit to Africa and especially his planned meeting with the youth. He'll first stop in Nairobi in Kenya on Wednesday before moving to Uganda and finish off in the Central African Republic. The Catholic Church says the pontiff's message in Kenya will focus on religious tolerance and peace.
The countdown is on, and the head of the Catholic Church will be in Kenya. Excitement is building.
I'm so enthusiastic, so expectant. I want to see him. I want to see the Holy Father.
We're looking forward to meet him. This doesn't happen in many generations. For me, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to taking the kids.
In a recorded message, the Pope explains his mission to Africa.
I'm coming as a minister of the gospel to proclaim the love of Jesus Christ and his message of reconciliation, forgiveness and peace.
Expectations are high.
I want to hear the message of reconciliation.
To hear from the Pope a message of peace, because that's what our country needs most.
A highlight of my visit will be my meetings with young people who are your greatest resource and our most promising hope for a future of solidarity, peace and progress.
Police say security has been heightened to cater for an extra 1 million people expected to pour into the Kenyan capital during the Pope's 3-day visit. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Kenya.
The SABC News will bring you comprehensive coverage of Pope Francis' visit to Africa. We'll report on his trip from Nairobi, Kenya to Kampala, Uganda. Don't miss the historical event. SABC News team.
And further afield, Belgium authorities say they have made 16 arrests in anti-terror raids, but suspected Paris attacks gunman Salah Abdeslam remains at large. Belgian prosecutors says that a total of 22 raids were carried out yesterday in Brussels and Charleroi. According to reports, police fired 2 shots at a car during an operation in Molenbeek, wounding 1 suspect who was later arrested. More than 130 people died and some 350 were wounded in the attacks in Paris. The African National Congress in KwaZulu-Natal says it will reach out to racial groups that feel excluded by the party. Provincial chairperson Sihle Zikalala launched a volunteer program in the town of Ikopo.
The ANC wants these volunteers to propel it to victory next year. 50,000 will be trained in KwaZulu-Natal. All racial groups will be targeted.
The Indian and colored community traditionally have been part of our revolution. And that is the space we'll want to close. We want them all to vote and vote for the ANC. The colored community has been complaining, saying that during the apartheid era, they were not white enough to be accommodated in the white regime.
Volunteers are heeding the call.
We will continue doing door-to-door service delivery because our people are faced by so many problems that need special focus to be dealt with.
The ANC should be a uniting tool within the alliance. That's what the communities are expecting.
The ANC says it wants to retain all municipalities it currently governs. Meanwhile, the merged municipalities of Gwasani and Ingwe will be renamed as Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma municipality after next year's poll. Sibonga Wangambata, SABC News, Ixopo.
Well, that's your news for now. Eben Janssen is standing by with more interviews, analysis and reviews.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jarvis. Very good morning to you as well. Now, the Stellenbosch University management announced that starting next year, January, English will be the primary language of teaching and communication at the institution. The move was prompted by a documentary called Leicester, in which students and staff tell of the discrimination they face on and off campus grounds. Since the release of the documentary, university management has appeared before the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee for Higher Education for its progress in implementation of the new language policy. In a statement, the university said they committed to the creation of spaces within which English, Afrikaans, isiXhosa and other languages can flourish there. But critics say the demise of Afrikaans at the university will affect high school education throughout the Western Cape. Now, for this and other issues that continue to face the Higher Education Department, we are joined from our studios in the capital, Pretoria, by Kaya Nkwanyana, who is the Department of Higher Education and Training's Media Liaison Officer. Very good morning to you, Kaya. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, Eben.
Kaya, before we get into the language discussion, I want to get your reaction with what's happening at TUT this morning. We saw violence again flare up over the weekend. Now exams have been postponed indefinitely. Are you in communication at all with university management, and what's your reaction to what is going on there?
We are quite concerned as the ministry. We've been in contact with the authorities of TUT since last week when the outbreak of protest started again. We are quite worried that a criminal element is creeping up. The damage to property, the assault to some of the students, all of those issues are quite worrying to us. We've been insisting to the management of TUT that law enforcement agencies must be involved, and we must be hard on those students who are actually part of the act that result into all of these damages. Law must take its course. We must arrest them as we deal with other issues that they might be raising. We are quite worried because the issues that have always been which constituted protests are issues that we have responded to as government. The issue of zero-no fee increase and the struggles around outsourcing, the call for insourcing of staff. Many of our universities, if not all of them, have acceded to that call. Now, the new demand for free education as a basis to go back is quite an issue that is creating problems because as government we have said it's a matter that is going to be looked into. That's why the president has established the task team, and the president might announce even the commission. So all of those issues, they represent progress and what will be looked into. So for now, we've been insisting that students must go back and focus on exams and recover the lost time so that those who might have missed out because of protestation, they find time to prepare for exams. So it's quite unfortunate that many of our institutions had to postpone. Of course, out of our own advice as a department, seeing the situation as it is, like in UWC, in Cape Peninsula, and so on, and including TUT.
You mentioned UWC now. The Deputy Minister of Public Works was Jeremy Croman, who came out this weekend and blamed political parties, the EFF in particular, for a small group that's causing more than 30,000 students at UWC in particular so much consternation, once again, destruction of property and the like. What do you make of the sentiments of Jeremy Croman this weekend?
Well, we have been getting information that there are political parties that are manipulating the situation, are mobilizing on the basis of the climate that is existing. And it's quite a serious factor to us, because we don't think it is appropriate that the current turmoil can be hijacked by any political party. We got to find solution. All of us, political parties, should be assisting in terms of stabilizing the situation so that students don't lose out this year, especially with respect to exams. Some of them should be graduating next year. They should be doing their final exams. So it actually creates a crisis in the system. Now, it's a matter that we are quite worried that certain political parties can actually weigh in a manner that deepens the crisis as we're trying to manage the situation.
Let's move on to the language policy. We've seen Stellenbosch have changed their stance with regards to English being the main language of instruction there. I want to ask you about that, your reaction to that, but also who decides the language policy at an institution? What is the role of your department?
Well, we have been engaging with Stellenbosch since the Open Stellenbosch movement led various actions, even after the appearance of the video, the Leicester. We were quite encouraged about the progress that the executive management is doing in terms of addressing some of the systemic issues that relates to language, that relates to institutional culture, that is not inviting to those who might not be Afrikaans. Professor Wim de Villiers, the Vice-Chancellor, has been a leading light in terms of seeing to it that indeed changes are taking place. The issue of language, we have a broad language policy as government from 2002, but institutions also have on the basis of that to develop their own language policy. But as in line with the Constitution, institutions are allowed to have more than one language of instruction, taking into account the student population that might be there and the common language that should be used for instruction. And the assessment that has been made in Stellenbosch after engagement with different sectors of community within the Stellenbosch has been that in reality, for purposes of inclusiveness, English must be given the equal status as Afrikaans as a language of instruction, so that you don't exclude those who are not African speakers, as it is the case now. So that because it's not about only South African students, but you also have international students. You also have your white English students who might not be fluent or using the Afrikaans as a language. Now, English becomes an important language to actually include all without necessarily doing away with Afrikaans, which is an important language which must be protected by our institution going forward. So we think that the engagements there and with the council and other stakeholders ultimately will give credence to the proposal that is put before the institution.
Finally, I want to ask you about the Higher Education Amendment Bill that's been tabled before Parliament. It's been met with some consternation by the opposition, with the DA in particular accusing the minister of increasing his powers to intervene in university matters. What do you make of that kind of comment, and what's your reaction as a department?
Well, the intention of this amendment is to make policy alignment in the Act. This is an Act of 1997. A lot has changed in the sector. For instance, at that time you had technicons, You're no more having technicons today. You are having University of Technologies. So there got to be a reflection of that. But also the powers of the minister with regard to issues of transformation and other issues that are of national importance. The policy does not give clarity in terms of the powers of the minister in intervening in some of the institutions which might be sluggish in terms of transformation and other issues of national importance. So the bill will actually clarify when and how the minister can intervene in an institution that is not consistently operating in a manner that we want. It will also clarify at what point an institution should be able to meet certain national standards. So in other words, the minister can able to set up a framework within which universities must proceed from the standard and many other areas so that we fast track whatever the issues that might be there in some of the institutions. We've been worried there about the slow pace in transformation in some of the institutions. And because of the institutional autonomy, that has been used as a basis to defy on some of the areas. So we will retain institutional autonomy, but also we must clarify the powers of the minister in terms of pushing a certain national imperative of transformation going forward.
Kaya, thank you very much for joining us this morning. That's the spokesperson of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Kaya Nkwanyana, coming to us live from the capital, Pretoria. Let's look back. COSATU will start its Congress in Midrand today. 2,500 delegates from the Labour Federation's 18 member unions will select new membership for the next 3 years and discuss problems facing the movement. Of course, there have been quite a few comments on Facebook. We want you to answer our question of the day as well. What are your expectations of this week's conference? Let's have a look at some of the comments now that have been doing around. Nogutava says, we wish COSATU a progressive national congress. Our wish is that workers will reclaim back their federation from some destructive elements, she says. Prof. J.C. Shavani says, the Congress, South African Trade Unions, COSATU's Congress starts today. I can't wait to hear the way forward. Yes, the nation can't wait to hear the way forward. Conscious Asher says, wait, what? Even before Congress has started, COSATU's current leadership is already lobbying for election 2016 allegiance, says Conscious Asher. Then Jan Kotze says, today is the start of COSATU's 12th Congress without its third General Secretary and NUMSA. Let's hope workers take control of their federation, says Jan Kotze. Then Mzukisi says, will COSATU ever be the same again? I can't wait for this Congress to start and see the outcome. Yes, those are some of the lingering questions with regards to the Labour Federation here in South Africa. Now, today's picture of the day. It comes from the Minister of Sport and Recreation, Bigile Mbalula. It's captioned, South Africa's #1 at Wade Dreamer. That says the caption, of course. Wade Vanikak won all the big awards at the Sports Awards last night. None more deserving than the young man from Cape Town. Let's take a look at what's happening around the country today. We start in Johannesburg with the trial of Sindisiwe Mangele, the alleged killer of Nkululeko Flaba Khabedi, is set to continue at the High Court here in Randburg. Mangele has claimed that she acted in self-defense after Khabedi allegedly attacked her. Then in Pietermaritzburg, a 20-year-old woman was arrested for trying to sell her baby on Gumtree for 5,000 rand. She's expected to appear in the magistrate's court. She's already abandoned her bid for bail. Then in Durban, a traditional healer and his co-accused are expected to appear in the Mzinto magistrate's court. The two men are accused of beheading a woman in an apparent Muti killing near Gandiaga township in Mzinto. Let's take a quick look at the front pages from around the globe. We start in Europe. The Times reports that David Cameron will vow to place the fight against Islamic State-style terrorism at the heart of Britain's £178 billion defence overhaul today, amid firm signs that Parliament is ready to sanction airstrikes against the militants in Syria. Then we move to New York. The International New York Times says, after a dramatic security sweep late Sunday marked by deployment of soldiers in the historic centre of the Belgian capital, the authorities announced early today that 16 people have been arrested in a joint police and military operation to try and ahead of what the Belgian Prime Minister earlier described as a serious and imminent threat of a Paris-style terrorist assault. Then finally in China, the South China Morning Post reports that a crackdown on mainland China's financial industry intensified as Guotai Junan Securities reported the chief of its overseas subsidiary has gone missing since last week as its shares endured a pounding in the market. Time for us now to take a break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Philips, we wake up every morning and ask, how can innovation make a difference to you? How can thousands of LEDs bring the pyramids to life and light up hearts? How can an air fryer make delicious traditional meals with up to 80% less fat? How can portable ultrasound be part of a program to help lower infant mortality in Uganda? Because the only innovation that really matters is innovation that matters to you. Innovation and you. Philips.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
Born with malformation of the limbs, David lives his life to the fullest.
I got this. Let me try my own. Got on the bed, then start playing soccer in the streets, then like, do this.
He can play soccer, he reads and writes, he's even able to swim, a role model to his peers.
Look at the scripture. It doesn't say I'm a conqueror, it says I'm more than a conqueror.
Join your host Buleng Mulebati on Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
The Department of Education has introduced a plan to privatize public schools in poor areas. The department has created a new model called the collaboration of schools. The model seeks to combine schools and make them one school that will be significantly run by private donors. However, SATU has accused the department of using taxpayers' money to privatize 5 schools as part of its pilot project. Now, to talk more about this, we are joined in our Cape Town studios by the Western Cape Education MEC, Debbie Schaefer. MEC, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning to you too.
First and foremost, tell me about this model to privatize poor schools.
Well, first of all, let's correct the misperception that has been created that it is privatizing schools. It is not privatizing schools. It is a different model, which we are calling collaboration schools, which we are working together. The Department of Education is working together with some donors and operating partners to assist in creating better education outcomes in poor schools. They will remain public schools, and there are no fee schools as well.
But explain the concept of the collaboration then.
The collaboration comes in where we've done an agreement with these donors who in turn have found operating partners who will assist in running the school effectively. But they still remain accountable ultimately to the Education Department. They are funded with a mixture of government funding as well as donor funding. And the idea is to try out some more innovative ideas in education, to test this model, to try and improve education, particularly in poorer communities and in underperforming schools.
How will that impact on no-fee schools?
It won't impact at all. The model is entirely a no-fee model, which is why it's so exciting. It's particularly designed to provide for poorer communities a better quality of education, because in our wealthier schools, very often parents can afford to pay extra money for extra resources. Now, in our poorer communities, they usually cannot afford to do so. So it's a very exciting concept, because the schools remain no-fee schools. They still remain accountable to the education department. We have a contract with the donors and the operating partners to comply with certain requirements. They will be held to certain standards. And we will still be involved in ensuring that they comply with those standards. But they will be able to get additional resources. They will be able to get additional support, particularly for teachers. They will get additional training, and they will be benefiting from additional finances from the donors as well.
So what I'm hearing is that whether no-fee schools or even poor schools, the fees will not be hiked for those students.
Definitely not. They will remain no-fee schools, completely no-fee schools. They also will receive all the existing support from the department that they currently get. If they are a quintile 1 to 3 school, they will still get the nutrition support. They will also get, in the case of those who qualify for transport, they will also get transport. They'll retain all those pro-poor benefits. This is an additional resource.
Now, so what do you say to SATU, which was not really buying into the concept?
I think SATU must explain what exactly they have an objection to. I would be more than happy to discuss it with SATU. 1 or 2 other unions have contacted me and said that they've heard about this and they wanted to see me about it. I've met with them and explained it. They didn't have a problem with it. I'm more than happy to meet with SATU also, but they haven't really at this point told me exactly what their problem is with the model.
Now, one of the issues that have affected several schools in poor areas is the question of security. How will the new model then assist these poorer schools that have got issues with security?
Well, issues with security at schools are obviously not only related to the schools, they generally are issues that happen in the surrounding communities which overflow into schools. So it's not entirely an education issue, but I mean, if there are additional measures required to ensure better security, I'm sure that the operating partners and the donors will do what they can to assist on that score.
What do these donors get out of it? I mean, are they just giving money to these poorer schools to make them better schools without getting anything in return?
What they're getting out of it is that they realize the transforming power of education in South Africa in the context from which we come, where we still have a lot of inequality in education, and they really are committed to trying to improve the quality of education for all of our learners. And they're philanthropic. They really want to see education improve. They realize how important it is for our country, and that's the only thing they want out of it.
Is this only going to happen in the Western Cape, MEC, or are you maybe looking at expanding that model further?
Unfortunately, I'm only able to influence the Western Cape. I don't have power in any of the other provinces, so unless and until we do that, I unfortunately can't. But anyone else who would like to copy the model, I'm more than happy to discuss it with my colleagues in other provinces.
MEC, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. That was the MEC in the Western Cape for Education, Debbie Schaefer.
Thanks, Harvest. Now, following renewed student violence, the Tshwane University of Technology has indefinitely postponed examinations at its Shoshanguve campus. Also, debt relief for deserving students and insourcing for service workers are on the cards at the Nelson Mandela Metropolitan University in Port Elizabeth. Lots of tweets with regards to both. Very emotive, very emotional scenes that we're seeing on our campuses, not just now, but the last month or so. Let's have a look at the tweets. What are people saying? Now, NMMU's SRC distanced itself when students needed them the most. We will let it slide for now, but it needs to be addressed at some point, says Zianda. Ofani says, students from TUT and CPUT know how to strike for sure. UWC took some notes from them. So how it's done. That's not how it's done, my friend. Burning down your campus is not how it's done. Jay Donovan, do TUT students feel bothered by heartburn? I mean, charity starts at home after all. Yes, burning vehicles, burning exam centres, burning residences. It's certainly very concerning what is happening on campuses nationwide right now. Let's take a look at what's happening on Newsroom Facebook page. Of course, Belgian police arrested 16 more people in late-night raids, searching for those behind the deadly November 13 attacks in Paris, Friday the 13th. But failed to find a prime suspect as the government locked down the capital for for a third day on Monday. And then Ghana's ruling NDC voted massively to affirm President John Mahama as its candidate for elections next year, setting the stage for a tight race between him and his main 2012 rival. Finally, the judge in the Flaba Habedi case will start delivering his verdict in the Johannesburg High Court, sitting in Randburg a little bit later this morning. You can find all of those stories and more on our Newsroom Facebook page. Time for another break here on Newsroom. We'll be back with movement after a short break.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that we get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Welcome back. This is still Newsroom now. Movement is a series of publications on the economic, political, spatial, social and cultural movements that have created South Africa's big cities. Movement forms part of the Movement Anthology project by the city, supported by the South African Cities Network. The campaign was launched by the city's founder and director, Zahira Asmal, during her opening keynote address on the 4th of April of last year. Now, she joins us now from our Seapoint studios to discuss this campaign and then some of the publications and work that she does. A very good morning to you, Zahira. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Hello, Eben. How are you?
Very good today. Fantastic. Just quickly give us a quick heads up. What is Movement?
Pardon? Say again. I can't hear you.
What is Movement?
Our movement is a campaign I started 2 years ago, focusing on the political, social, spatial, economic and cultural movements that are creating South Africa's big cities. So we focus on 3 publications we've produced so far. Mm-hmm. That's our movement project.
And what drove you to the formation of this project?
Well, I was interested about through the movements that we were making as citizens in our past, but also in our present. What kind of movements we need to make in the future to make our cities better. So what we did is I divided in our editing of the book in those 5 kind of movement sections that I mentioned earlier. I did research together with co-editors that I invited in the various cities to analyze the movements that our ancestors have made. I mean, in Johannesburg, we've also gone as far back as terraforming, so the movement of the earth. And in Cape Town, about colonial movements and the movements that Khoisan people have made in the past that have made the cities they are today. So it's an anthology. There are 21 chapters in each of the books. And so with that, I wanted to chart a civic engagement of people today to see what movements we need to make in the future based on the movements that people have made in the past.
How's it going to benefit us?
Well, civic engagement, to be more interested in our cities. I feel there's a lot of complacency in our cities currently. I feel people have this attitude, generally speaking, that if it's up to government to make our cities. But with this project, I want people to understand that it is through movements that we make that will make our cities better. So that's how these projects will benefit, through seeing our cities in a more interesting, more diverse, and more insightful way.
And Zahira, how many cities are you looking at?
We've got 3 cities. So it's Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban. So we've published 2 books for Cape Town and Johannesburg, and we did a poster zine for Durban that we launched last year.
And how long is the project going to run for?
Well, it depends as long as we make movements. So we're launching the book this Thursday in Johannesburg. Everyone is welcome to join us there. And in Cape Town next Wednesday on the 2nd of December. And then what we're going to do next year is we're going to take certain chapters from the book and we're going to host movement experiences. So we want to take people through the cities of Johannesburg and Cape Town, take them through vaulted spaces that are completely inaccessible at the moment, but previously had amazing points of movement. So we'd like to move through these cities. We're asking the contributors of the books to join us, and we want to see. So already part of our project is at the Guggenheim in Bilbao, and we're hoping to take it further. So I can't tell you, it's been 2 years in the making. You know, books take a long time. Yeah. We took a year for research, and then this year we commissioned the works and published the books. They're ready, as you can see. They're with us now. Yep. And next year, yeah, we're taking them through movement experiences and hopefully through different parts of the world.
Fantastic.
South Africa.
It's a fantastic movement. Thank you very much for joining us. Zahira Asmal coming to you live from Cape Town. She's the founder of Movement South Africa. Of course, it launches here this week in Johannesburg and Cape Town. It's very interesting. You should take charge of the city that you live in. That's the premise of it. Well, time now for us to have a look at the weather. Hopefully, Paul Manara has got some good news for us this week.
Hi there, let's take a look at your weather. And the good news for South Africa is that we're going to see some beautiful skies and also possibilities of slightly cooler conditions as compared to what we've had with the heat waves over the last couple of weeks. But there is still some shades of heat waves, particularly towards the West Coast district in places such as Alexander Bay, going towards Calvinia and including the West Coast district. So please do look out for those. In terms of the rainfall, it's not so much of good news. We're expecting very little chance of rainfall. Most of it is only expected towards the northeastern parts of South Africa. But for Madagascar, really good news is that there's a lot of rainfall along those parts. So it is going to be coming in over the next couple of days. So for South Africa, we're only going to see rain possibly by Thursday and Friday over the west coast as well as over the east coast of the country, particularly if you're going to be in KwaZulu-Natal. That's where you should expect rain. In terms of the temperatures, it looks like it's going to be quite a hot day for Pretoria. 30 degrees your maximum. Maputo also quite hot out in towards the eastern side. Pietermaritzburg around 27 degrees. Some warm weather is expected towards Windhoek as well as over Alexander Bay. Now, you know, as Alexander Bay is usually quite cool into the lower teens and sometimes over the upper teens. But today and tomorrow it will be just around 25 and 26 degrees. Rainy conditions over the central parts as usual. The tropics are expected to be quite rainy all the way towards places such as Rwanda and definitely in towards Bujumbura over Burundi. Do expect rainy conditions there. And over the western side as well, Luanda should expect up to 60% chance of rain, becoming even stronger for tomorrow. As you can see, the purple shades there indicating bigger chances of rainfall and also possibilities of some thunderstorms. Temperatures are expected to be quite warm. Basically, usual conditions that you're expecting. 32 for both Kinshasa as well as over Brazzaville. And Luanda is at 29 degrees. Hot weather for Kigali, going all the way towards the northern part of Africa. But then clear conditions are expected over the Sahara Desert. That's why I'll leave it for the weather for now. Do stay tuned. There'll be more weather updates later.
Your World makes it its business every evening to round up the leading local stories and international news to keep you informed all the time.
Make a date with Your World every evening for all the news headlines around the world to keep you abreast with knowledge.
Catch Your World for headlines across the world every Monday to Friday from 9 p.m, then Saturday and Sunday from 7 p.m.
Morning Live sets the agenda for the day.
We bring you the latest local and international news.
We are on the ball with all your sports activities and results.
We give you the latest business update.
We bring you the latest weather every time.
Watch Morning Live every weekday morning at 6 o'clock, bringing you everything you need to know before you go. Shap shap, tada.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Your destiny is not determined by the township you come from.
The one place we will find movers and shakers is in the township. It's just that they're diamonds in the rough and some of them don't even know it.
Being young with no experience in business is a challenge that Bulelani took upon himself.
I was motivated by the prayer. I was motivated by the love.
To be a novice in business was tough, but experience made him a businessman of note.
It took me 7 years to make my first million. I've got all the scars to prove that I started with nothing.
A journey well traveled.
For me, that is the one major thing. The ability to touch other people's lives. Nothing goes beyond that.
Join your host Puleng Mulebati on Bopilong every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
Looking for social issues?
It is not our intention to give condoms to 10-year-old children.
We're here to assist you. Looking for religious issues?
The point is not for the church to try and prove whether this is the fact.
So we want accountability. Is there a system of governance in your churches?
Political issues.
Barack Obama said Africa should stop looking to the outside for salvation and focus on someone else being at fault for the problems of the continent.
Economic issues.
The young mothers, single mothers that's buying property now.
Or just looking to air your views.
Here are some of your views on social media.
Look no further, as Newsroom has all the informative information you need. Weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Monday, the 23rd of November 2015. This is Newsroom. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. As you know, we're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios, Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preslin. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. But first, let's take a look at all your headlines. COSATU's elective conference starts in Midrand, north of Johannesburg today. Federation's President Dumo Dlamini says that escalation of tensions between leaders is weakening the ANC's tripartite alliance. The Tshwane University of Technology, TUT, has indefinitely postponed examinations at its Shoshanguve campus north of Pretoria following renewed student violence. And emergency teams in Myanmar say the death toll from a landslide in Kachin state could rise to over 200. Now, those are all your headlines. But first, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports screen. Very good morning to you, Squire.
Good morning, Elvis. Quite a lot happening on the sports field as well as in our sports awards halls. In fact, let me greet all of our viewers before I carry on further. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
A trifecta of awards. Wait for Nikek!
Wade van Niekerk lights up the stage at the South African Sports Awards, winning Sportsman of the Year, Sports Star of the Year, and the People's Choice Award. Metronomic Djokovic keeps the trophy count ticking as he beats Roger Federer to win his fourth ATP World Tour final in a row. And that, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in the sports. Make sure you stick around for that, around about 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. Let's now take a look at your top story. COSATU's elective conference starts in Midrand, north of Johannesburg, this morning. The Federation's President, Dumo Dlamini, says that escalation of tensions between the leaders is weakening the ANC's tripartite alliance. The conference will be the first without its biggest former affiliate, NUMSA, and its former General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi.
Dumo Dlamini says since his re-election in 2012, the past 3 years have been the most difficult.
It has bruised a lot of us. Some of us have fallen on the way because of it.
Among those who have fallen, Zwelinzima Vavi, COSATU's first General Secretary to be expelled. The events before that decision exposed deep divisions, some which played out in court. The fallout cut deep. From factory workers to founder members watched in awe.
I wish this did not happen in our lifetime so that at least we did not live to witness this horror. It's horrible. We never thought at any stage that COSATU would find itself as disunited as it is today.
For the first time in COSATU's history, it expelled an affiliate, and it happened to be the biggest. NUMSA walked away with 340,000 members, plunging COSATU's membership to just over 1.8 million. Serious introspection is expected over the next 4 days. Whoever walks through these doors as the new leadership of COSATU has a momentous task ahead of them. Not only do they have to unite its affiliate, but also have to inspire confidence that this is the federation to belong to, especially in light of its former General Secretary being part of a workers' summit which could pave the way for the establishment of a new federation. Aldrin Simpier, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, early on, SABC spoke to COSATU's president, Dumo Dlamini, who said that the federation is not facing a crisis of relevance, but rather a crisis in the nature of the economy. Dlamini says the reason that the union members have decreased is because employers fire workers once they join the unions.
It's not a crisis of relevance. It's the nature of the economy we're facing. As I've just made an example that other employers would fire workers immediately they know that they want to join a union. So the importance of trade unions is even more relevant right now because those workers do not enjoy the protection of the labor laws of this country, which is given by trade unions, which are organizing at the workplace, which are ensuring that they represent workers at the collective bargaining structures. That is under threat. The collective bargaining structures are under threat in South Africa and in the world over, which is why workers must unite to defend themselves.
With that in mind, workers can ill afford to have disunity among a trade union federation that they look to save them from a number of those dire situations. So let's speak a little bit about that unity now and perhaps the lack thereof in COSATU. It hasn't been a very good year for you, has it been?
Absolutely. We have been going through a tumultuous past 4 years to date, working to hold an organization together when it was going through attacks from within, from outside, even from outside this country, South Africa. COSATU has been fielding a range of attacks because others feel that this COSATU needs to be a political party so that it contest elections for the workers, which is a weird suggestion that has failed in many, many countries. Others feel that COSATU is wrong to be in an alliance with the ANC because they are not benefiting from it. Yes, true, but not true. This alliance will be the one that have propelled us to where we are better than what we were in 1994. And we have to strengthen it. But indeed, we have been riddled with misunderstandings from within, leading to a very historic, painful decision that had to be taken to expel one of our own due to the constitution of our organization.
That is exactly what I'd like to zone in on. You're not quite out of the woods yet when it comes to that matter. I believe legal action possibly still on the cards for Mr. Zwelinzima Mavavi.
Look, the matter relating to the appeals will be reported to Congress, and Congress will close that matter, whatever direction it takes. But Congress must close that matter because they have now pronounced publicly they have abandoned their right to appeal. We had prepared for that to happen, but they seem to have abandoned that. Whether there shall be any legal challenge following the matters relating to our former General Secretary, again, I don't want to venture into that space because what we are busy with right now, we are uniting our federation. We're ensuring that we put our systems in place so that going forward, we do not experience the administrative glitches that have caused us to be in the situation we found ourselves now.
Remember, we're asking you that question this morning, seeing that the conference is on the way this morning. Our question to you is, what are your expectations of this week's COSATU conference? That's our question to you. Let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter page. You can see it on your screen as we continue, and we'll read those comments a little bit later. Meanwhile, the SACP General Secretary, Bladen Nzimande, has lashed out at the media, claiming it's advocating the demise of the tripartite alliance. He says the Communist Party has no intention of breaking away from the ANC and the alliance.
Closing ranks around the SACP General Secretary, the annual augmented Central Committee meeting from branches to national leaders. Nzimande did not mention attacks on him, but lashed out at the media.
The Central Committee noted and actually expressed its strong disapproval but determination to actually deal with factionalist activity that threatens to put very serious stresses on our alliance at a time when we need a more united alliance.
Nzimande mentioned problems between the ANC and SACP in Mpumalanga and KwaZulu-Natal. Meetings will be held in all provinces to diffuse tensions.
Unless we assist those comrades, we might actually find ourselves with a very dysfunctional alliance, something that is not in the interests of our movement.
Ahead of the 2016 local government elections, alliance partners are unanimous on the importance of unity. Ntantakalani, SABC News, Binoni.
Now, for the latest on the COSATU Congress, we now cross live to our reporter on the scene, Tumali Mshlali, who's in Midrand, where the conference is taking place. A very good morning to you once again, Tumali. Can you give us an update as to what's transpiring there?
Wait for the official start of the COSATU's Congress here in Midrand, Gallagher Estate in northern Johannesburg. And it's not only delegates from COSATU affiliates here in South Africa. We've also got an international delegation that has been arriving here. And key amongst them, representing them, is Mr. Swadesh Devroya, who's the Deputy General Secretary of the World Federation of Trade Unions. Mr. Devroya, why was it important for you to come and show solidarity and attend this Congress here in Johannesburg?
Yeah, you are very correct. We have come here to express our solidarity on behalf of the World Federation of Trade Union, WAFTU, a 5-member delegation led by our General Secretary, George Mabricos, myself, Swadesh Devroya, Deputy General Secretary of WAFTU, and my parent organization is Center of Indian Trade Unions, a huge country, India, as you know. So before I proceed, I would like to take this opportunity to tell that to the people of South Africa, that WFTU has decided to have its next Congress, the 16th Congress, World Congress of WFTU in South Africa from 3rd to 6th October 2016. So during the course of this Congress, we are going to discuss with the South African trade union leadership about the preparation and perspective of the Congress also. Now, so far as the 12th Congress of COSATU is concerned, according to WFTU understanding, it is a very crucial time for the total working class movement of the world, because capitalism is day in and day out deepening into the current crisis. And it is to be noted that the present crisis is not a cyclical crisis, it is a systemic crisis of capitalism. And under imperialist globalization and under the systemic crisis of capitalism, the capitalist order are trying to impose the burden of the crisis on the working class as a whole all over the world, the developed countries and the developing countries. And more so, the underdeveloped countries and developing countries are more of an attack. So, the question of international solidarity of the entire working class movement never has attained such an importance as it has attained today.
So do you think that the trade union federation movement or structure of trade unions are still relevant? We're seeing all over the world the issue of labor brokers, something COSATU has also been complaining about very bitterly here in South Africa, dividing worker solidarity and therefore dividing worker unity and strength.
No, the solidarity and relevance of the working class, it is unparalleled as of today. And all over the world, the developed countries, the developing countries, the working class in their millions and billions on the street. And more so, let me take the advantage to tell you that I come from Asia. And here I am in South Africa and the African continent. So Afro-Asian unity of the working class is also one of the very important tasks. And I believe the 12th Congress of COSATU shall certainly, through their documentation and deliberations, will take into consideration the practical reality and the challenge being faced by the working class, particularly being in the developing country and Afro-Asian regions has got specific importance. So, in this Congress, and also WFTU is prioritizing, and I want to declare here, the next year's Congress of the World Trade Union Congress, it shall not be an event just to be hosted in South Africa. It will be a culmination of the entire African trade union movement, and delegates from around 80 countries, numbering around 1,000, shall come over here. So this Congress of COSATU shall be a kind of a beginning of the preparation and the deliberation and the ideological, political, organizational content.
Right, sir. We're going to have to leave it there. That was a representative from the World Trade Union Federation movement, basically giving his overview of why it was important for them to come here and show solidarity here at COSATU's Congress. And now with that, I'll throw to my colleague Vuyo Mvoko, who's also here at Gallagher Estate. Vuyo, it's over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Jum. Well, for a domestic perspective of the issues that we raised there, the crisis of capitalism and solidarity among workers the world over, I'm joined here in the studio by Mr. George James, who is the first Vice President of the Congress of South African Trade Unions. The crisis of capitalism, the question is whether COSATU is ready and willing to actually seize the moment.
Yes, we are ready to seize the moment. The crisis of capitalism has been with all countries that are capitalist in the mode of their production. So it's not something new, but we are grappling with new dimensions of this crisis.
But what do you mean exactly when you talk about the crisis of capitalism? What exactly is that?
One, the crisis of capitalism is that whilst those who own means of production are accumulating more, the vast majority of the citizens of the world are poorer and poorer. And it is a crisis in the sense that it is not able to address the basic needs of the people as a whole. In that way, it presents a crisis because it presents people who are challenging it every day, who want to see the status quo change.
I think we have a bit of a problem with the microphone there while they are busy trying to fix that fallen microphone. Well, we are indeed live from the Congress of South African Trade Unions elective Congress here at Gallagher Estates, and that is where we will be over the next few 3 or so days. As you can see there, slowly but surely members are filling up the hall. Proceedings are expected to get underway in the next 40-45 minutes. That's if the delegates that are still outstanding, some of them are outside getting off the buses. As soon as they get into that hall, proceedings will indeed get underway. Mr. James, if I may come back to you. The question then is whether the reason I was asking whether you are willing and able to actually seize the moment was if one looks at the issue of labor brokers, you haven't made much progress. Honestly speaking, if one looks at the issue that has actually pitted comrade against comrade, and that is the investment arms of your affiliates, where people are accused of all manner of things, including embezzling funds and the people jostling for the kind of positions that will bring them closer to those resources. It suggests that you actually have bigger problems in dealing with the crisis of capitalism than you can actually imagine.
Well, in that sense, yes. Fortunately, we are not hiding what you are raising as COSATU. It is there in our secretariat report. The misuse of funds, particularly the investment monies, where leaders are enriching themselves. We are raising that issue in the Secretariat report. We want this Congress to deal with that matter because it cannot be us, workers, who are caught with the hands in the cookie jar. It cannot be us.
Now add to that, you have lost your biggest affiliate, you've lost your general secretary, and the other unions that believe that those cases were handled badly are not in particularly good shape either. Is this Congress going to deal with those issues?
It definitely is going to deal with that. You will see in the agenda that we have the item called appeals, where we are affording NUMSA the opportunity to appeal and the former General Secretary. Of course, they have announced in the media that they will not pursue their appeals any longer.
But can someone really take that seriously? If I'm going to read you something from a statement that was issued after, it's talking about Vavi's emotional spasms and self-congratulatory rhetoric. the self-coronated Napoleon of the working class, his usual self-advertising and political striptease. That's like the kind of language we haven't heard from COSATU, and it suggests, I mean, certainly to someone like me who doesn't know what discussions may have gone behind closed doors, it suggests that none of you seem to be interested in actually confronting the reality of where things are, and no one seems to be interested in the unity that is supposed to be the theme of this very Congress.
That statement was issued by COSATU in response to what the former General Secretary, Comrade Zwelinzima Mavavu, was saying.
Could you not have risen above that? Could you not have been the more magnanimous ones and show some leadership and say, if he chooses to speak the way he speaks, if he chooses to do what he has said he wants to do, we are going to rise above that and be more mature about it, because that's if your interest was indeed in unity and in making sure that this federation comes out of this Congress united, but not only that, but ready and willing to actually take on the issues, the core issues of the working people of this country.
Those two have defined themselves out of the federation. They have made a pronouncement that they are not willing to come back here. It would be a fuss to be part of us. Well, if that is their choice, we welcome that, because nobody is forced to belong to COSATU. We organize people, but if people choose to be outside, that's their choice.
How should we measure the success or failure of this Congress come 3 days down the line when we're done?
If we fail, first and foremost, to deal with corruption within, then this Congress will not be successful. 2, if we fail to address the infights that are there within the affiliates, we shall have failed to do our work as this Congress. Those are the key issues that this Congress must focus on. Because if our affiliated unions are in tatters, there is no way COSATU will be coherent.
George James, that's where we're going to leave it for now. George James is, of course, the first deputy president of the Congress of South African Trade Unions. Well, that's where we are going to leave it for now, but we will be here throughout the day and over the next few days, bringing you live from Galaga Estate here in Midrand, the elective Congress of the Congress of South African Trade Unions. For now, it's back to the studio in Northland Park.
Thank you, Vuyo. That's our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko, who is in Midrand live, where the conference of COSATU is taking place. On to other stories now. President Jacob Zuma has urged the Jewish community to continue playing a prominent role in the country in building a non-racial South Africa. He was addressing a South African Jewish Board of Deputies biannual national conference in Johannesburg.
A gathering of Jewish community in South Africa. They meet every 2 years to discuss issues of common interest and concern. International guests, politicians, and ordinary people attended the conference. They were urged to play a key role in shaping the country's future.
We call upon the Jewish community to participate actively as we implement the National Development Plan towards the goal of building a truly united, non-racial and non-sexist and prosperous South Africa.
South Africa's struggle has produced luminaries like Dennis Goldberg, a Rivonia trialist, and first Chief Justice Arthur Chaskalson. But this community says it's concerned about what it calls new anti-Semitism.
We condemn terrorist groups like Hamas and Hezbollah, which have absolutely no intention of living alongside a Jewish state. And we know this because they say it all the time. They continue to call for the destruction of Israel.
President Zuma reiterated South Africa's stance of a two-state solution to the Middle East crisis.
We believe that the establishment of the State of Palestine will lay a solid foundation for lasting peace in the Middle East. We urge our Jewish community to remain seized with these efforts and to also make their contribution in bringing about a peaceful Middle East. South Africa has something to offer in the promotion of peace and tolerance in the world.
South Africa was urged to take an active role in facilitating dialogue in the Israeli-Palestinian question. Mzondi Lembech, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Tshwane University of Technology has indefinitely postponed all exams at its Shoshanguve campus north of Pretoria. Now this follows renewed student violence, during which 3 halls and a security vehicle were set alight on Saturday. The SRC has distanced itself from the violence. The postponement of exams has had an impact on contract workers, and this morning they were seen waiting outside the institution's main gate. Most of them are cleaners who were apparently not told about the latest developments. TUT management says further announcements will be made today. Further afield now, Belgium authorities say they have made 16 arrests in anti-terror raids, but suspected Paris attack gunman Salah Abdeslam remains at large. The Belgian prosecutor says a total of 22 raids were carried out yesterday in Brussels and Charleroi. According to reports, police fired 2 shots at a car during an operation in Molenbeek, wounding 1 suspect who was later arrested. More than 130 people died and some 350 were wounded in the attacks in Paris. Emergency teams in Myanmar say that the death toll from a landslide in Kachin state could rise to over 200. Nearly 100 bodies have been retrieved near a jade mine. Hopes are dwindling that any of an estimated 100 people still missing will be found alive. Rescue workers had recovered 104 bodies when the search was suspended on Sunday night. The mines and dump sites for debris are rife with hazards, and landslides are not uncommon, though rarely this deadly. Many of the miners were sleeping in huts when the landslide occurred. It's unclear what triggered the landslide in the remote and mountainous region that is almost entirely off limits to foreigners. Safety measures at the mines and surrounding dumping sites are minimal.
The SABC News will bring you comprehensive coverage of Pope Francis' visit to Africa. We'll report on his trip from Nairobi, Kenya to Kampala, Uganda. Don't miss the historical event. SABC News team.
Pope Francis says he is looking forward to his maiden visit to Africa, and especially his planned meeting with the youth. He'll first stop in Nairobi in Kenya on Wednesday before moving to Uganda and then finish off in the Central African Republic. The Catholic Church says the pontiff's message in Kenya will focus on religious tolerance and peace.
The countdown is on, and the head of the Catholic Church will be in Kenya. Excitement is building.
I'm so enthusiastic, so expectant. I want to see him. I want to see the Holy Father.
We're looking forward to meet him. This doesn't happen in many generations. For me, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to taking the kids.
In a recorded message, the Pope explains his mission to Africa.
I'm coming as a minister of the gospel to proclaim the love of Jesus Christ and his message of reconciliation, forgiveness and peace.
Expectations are high.
I want to hear the message of reconciliation.
To hear from the Pope a message of peace, because that's what our country needs most.
A highlight of my visit will be my meetings with young people who are your greatest resource and our most promising hope for a future of solidarity, peace, and progress.
Police say security has been heightened to cater for an extra 1 million people expected to pour into the Kenyan capital during the Pope's 3-day visit. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Kenya.
The SABC News will bring you comprehensive coverage of Pope Francis' visit to Africa. We'll report on his trip from Nairobi, Kenya to Kampala, Uganda. Don't miss the historical event. SABC News team.
Now, the rehabilitation of bridges over the M1 freeway around Johannesburg is underway, and the Metro Police have warned that traffic will be heavily affected. A total of 210 million rand will go towards improving the bridges. The project is expected to take about 15 months to complete. The Johannesburg Roads Agency says that roads and bridges form a critical part of transport and infrastructure, and their maintenance and rehabilitation is as important. As part of the roads development program, the Oxford and Federation bridges between Killarney and St Andrews, as well as the double-decker bridge between Carr and Anderson Streets, will be rehabilitated. This morning, traffic was not as bad on the M1. However, traffic is definitely going to be affected going forward, with one lane being restricted in either direction. Now, those are all your news. That's all your news for now. We'll be back after this.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Good morning, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makamat and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, athlete Wade van Niekerk is South Africa's Sportsman of the Year. He was the big winner at last night's SA Sports Awards function in Bloemfontein, the culmination of a breakthrough season that saw him win gold at the IWF World Championships earlier this year with the fourth fastest time ever in the one-lap sprint. Now, he was also the recipient of the People's Choice Award.
We'll also get a car that you can see behind you. Yes,
now, his third prize for the night was for Sports Star of the Night, where he was up against the Proteas world #1 batsman A.B. de Villiers, Chandler Clough, cycling star Ashley Moolman-Pasio, and wheelchair tennis champion Lucas Sithole. Now, Moolman-Pasio, the first South African to be ranked amongst the world's top 10 cyclists, won the Sportswoman of the Year. Team of the Year are the Springbok Sevens, who are now preparing for the Rio Olympics. And finally, young fast bowler Kagiso Rabada, currently in India with the Proteas, is the newcomer of the year. Now, Wade says due to continuous injuries for the last few years before 2013, he was struggling to find form. However, in 2013, he started seeing growth and consistency in his performances.
I actually started off as a sprinter, 1 and 2 sprinter, and due to injuries and continuous injuries for the last few years, before 2013, I was really struggling to find form again, and once I got to 2013, I started seeing some more growth and consistency in my performances, and I think it just really opened up more doors for myself, and I really started believing in myself. And then obviously spiritually, I just accepted that I serve a powerful God and that He's going to pull me through every challenges that I have. I mean, He took me from someone who didn't really have a dream to someone who represented the country to someone that started winning races. And I mean, I just leave it all in His hands. When I go on the blocks every day, it's just, God, I leave it all in your hands. I'm just going to put it all out on the track. Whatever happens, happens, and I leave it in your hands. And luckily for me, everything just went my way this last few years.
Right now, there was a lot of PSL action happening over the weekend. Here's a quick look at the results from the weekend's action, which was all over Saturday as well as Sunday. As you can see, Vets 3-2 beating Golden Arrows. Polokwane City 1-0 against Platinum Stars. Maritzburg United, Kaizer Chiefs, yes, late strike. Saved them some blushes. Mamelodi Sundowns shoot to second position, 3-1 against Free State Stars. Ajax Cape Town, 1-0, they lose to SuperSport. And yesterday, Go Fest, Jomo Cosmos beating Chipa United 4-3, and Bloemfontein losing 2-0 to Black Aces. Which then brings us through to see exactly what's happening with the log standings. And as you'll see in the log standings, which are coming up shortly, you'll see that it's actually been some interesting movements being made. And Bidvest West are sitting first on 26 points. Mamelodi Sundowns on 23. Black Aces third on 21. Kaizer Chiefs sitting fourth. And Chipa United bringing up the rear of the top 8. And then we'll see that in the last 8, Maritzburg United and University of Pretoria topping up the rear, and they're on minus 15, minus 8 goal difference there. SuperSport United knocking on the top 8 door with 13 points in 9th, and Orlando Pirates sitting 11th, and they've got 11 points. And that in a nutshell is what was happening with the PSL action over the weekend. We'll be back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
We kick off this week's show by seeing how Kenyans are paying tribute to the victims, as well as not only how they've coped, but how they returned stronger after the attacks.
Last year, images of the 4-day Westgate Mall attack saturated front pages.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, artists have assembled to celebrate the peace this war-torn country has not had in a long time.
No conflict that can't be solved without a conversation.
The Journal, every Saturday at 1:30 on SABC News.
Welcome to Network, a technology news program that also discusses what's trending in social media in and around Africa. MTN has launched its new movie and television streaming service, Front Row. If it's trending, we will find it. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Time for us now to take a look at what's happening on the African continent. Here are the top stories. Pope Francis will be traveling to the continent this week for what has been deemed the riskiest trip since he began his term. He's expected to visit the Central African Republic, Kenya and Uganda. Pope Francis will visit a slum, refugee camp and mosques despite security fears following recent jihadist attacks. The 78-year-old will be meeting with victims of war, child soldiers and AIDS sufferers. However, the Vatican has warned that plans could change if his security is threatened. More than 2 million refugee children suffer from malnutrition every year. This is according to a statement by the United Nations International Children's Fund yesterday. It is estimated that nearly 550,000 children under the age of 5 are living in the worst affected area of Darfur. UNICEF has called on the international community to boost funds. Then in Burundi, at least 5 people were killed in overnight clashes. This according to police who allegedly denied residents reports of gunfire in the capital Bujumbura prior to the attacks. Burundi descended into violence following President Pierre Nkurunziza's decision to run for a third term in office and won. Opponents have called this move a violation of the nation's constitution. And in Mali, investigators were following several leads following the attack on a top hotel there. At least 19 people were killed after Malian commandos stormed the Radisson Blu Hotel in the capital Bamako. 170 people were taken hostage during the 8-hour siege. 3 Islamic militant groups have claimed responsibility for the attacks. Now, when we think about relations between China and Africa, infrastructure development and trade often comes to mind. But recently, ties between the areas are rapidly expanding to cover more areas of investment. China's investment in Africa has grown over the past decade, with billions of US dollars invested in the last year alone. Next month, China is expected to meet delegates from across the continent at the summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation here in Johannesburg in South Africa. It will be the second time in the 15-year history of FOCAC that the leaders are meeting together. But what does this mean for African growth and development? Joining us today in studio is Chief Economist at Investment Solutions, Lesiba Motata. Very good morning to you, Lesiba. Always nice to have you with us.
How's it even? Yes.
The 4th and the 5th of December is the China Relations FOCAC conference taking place here in Johannesburg. We've seen the Indo-African summit in New Delhi taking place recently. What's your expectation from FOCAC?
So China, it's an important conversation to be had with Africa, because it's always levied with a criticism that, is it the new colonial power?
Yeah.
Is it doing the right things in terms of investments? What kind of deals does it have with African countries around commodities? Is it just paying up to get perpetual income or commodities being received by it to foster its own investments? So I think it's an important engagement. It's very interesting that it's happening in South Africa, because that becomes a very interesting node to chat about these matters. China has done a lot in Africa. Some good things, some we need to think about them, but largely it's a good engagement. I expect more detail about this infrastructure program that China has. It's interesting that they have talked about this Silk Belt, and which talks about Africa included in it.
When we talk about this relationship, one has to look at China's global strategy, and their global strategy talks about a multipolar world where power is vested across the planet and not just in one or two spheres, as we see right now. Do you see the emergence of that here in Africa, in a genuine relationship where China wants to make sure that power is vested on the continent?
Well, I do expect that. So when one was visiting in Beijing a few years ago, there was one comment that was made that Chinese presence in Africa has created an alternative source of finance. In it has reduced the cost of African countries accessing capital markets. In fact, they pay lower interest rates as a result of having an alternative, a big player like China in the continent. So it does contribute positively, and I expect these engagements to continue along those lines. In fact, in the Silk Road, the point that I mentioned earlier, if you look at the map of what they are planning to do, is to have trade agreements along the maritime countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, India. It actually goes straight into Kenya through the Mediterranean Sea into Europe, which was an interesting outcome, that Africa, particularly east of Africa, is paramount in their thinking.
The decline in commodity prices in recent times has helped certain African economies, and others are suffering a little bit. How is this affecting the relationship between Africa and China?
Yeah, so that decline in commodities was quite significant. Even for China, it demands less commodities, and it's likely to see less revenue in terms of what they do in terms of exports, particularly just from a Chinese perspective. So it's sitting with capital, excess capital. With this slowdown that's happening in China, it's likely to solicit a situation where they invest less globally. So I wouldn't see huge amounts of trade that happens, huge amount of money that goes into an African discussion, which leaves some of the incumbent countries in Africa a little bit bare. And there could be risks in terms of defaults. There could be contraction in economic activity, as we have begun to see, because we remain, one, dependent on commodities, and some countries much more dependent on exports of commodities to China.
What about the Indian factor?
Yeah.
Because we've seen at the Indo-African summit in New Delhi that took place a couple of weeks ago that there was a an open suggestion on the part of India that they want to increase their influence on the African continent. Yeah. And it almost felt like there was a little competitive edge developing with China. Yeah. How do you read this?
Which I think is a healthy situation. So the African continent, you know, we've got the West, we've got the East, we've got the Sub-Saharan Africa. If you look in detail of what's going on with the Indians, is that their influence is much more on the east of Africa. Mozambique, Mauritius, the eastern bloc of Africa, which in fact some have argued that that becomes an interesting trade route with the rest of the Middle East. Just logistically, it makes sense.
With an Indian Ocean rim, if one can call it that.
Yeah, so it becomes very easier for trade with East Africa. So it's a good thing if you have two superpowers, economic superpowers, providing capital, providing strategies in terms of trade. It's all positive for African economies, and I think they need to grab it with both hands, as the Eastern Bloc has begun to do up north.
How does this plug into the work that BRICS is doing, specifically the work of the BRICS Bank?
Yeah, so it becomes an interesting outcome. The way China has looked at the BRICS Bank, I think they've actually downgraded its significance. It still has similarities with the IMF in terms of what conditions will be at play when it lends money, but it has prioritized the Asian Development Bank much more. So I think the BRICS one is an interesting concept. It's yet to be proved in detail of how it's going to pan out. And I'm not sure that, because Africa is only represented by South Africa. Yeah. And in it, there are obvious tensions as a result. That is not quite representative of the entire network of countries that we have. And for that reason, the BRICS Bank, I think in Chinese people's mind, they have a huge contribution to those. It's potentially second grade coming to relative to the Asian Development Bank.
Over the weekend, I read some of the numbers come out. It says that emerging economies might have turned the corner now, and the outlook is quite good for the next decade. How does this tie in with this relationship? And also, why then is South Africa an emerging economy that is that the outlook is not that good?
Yeah. So the emerging market countries, here we're actually talking about two superpowers. Yeah. The newest one will be India. It is the fastest growing economy outside Sub-Saharan Africa. Yeah. And its policies in terms of reform has placed it at the forefront of what could happen going forward in terms of economic superpowers. So when we talk about emerging markets, we're really talking about those two. In it, there's a strong relationship with Sub-Saharan Africa, excluding South Africa. So in it, we are losing competitiveness. I think South Africa needs to catch a wake-up. There are a few things that we can do to position ourselves as one who participate much more with this Sub-Saharan African growth outlook, which is seemingly better. Although the Asian countries, particularly led by India, it's a much more stronger outcome.
Lesiba, fantastic to have you with us always. On a Monday morning, Lesiba Mutata is the chief economist at Investment Solutions here in South Africa. He comes in, he gives us his views on the world, especially the outlook of Africa's economies. Thanks once again for joining us. Of course, just to tell you that the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation takes place here in Johannesburg on the 4th and 5th of December. We'll keep a close eye on that and see what comes up. Now we move on. Now, violence against children may go undetected for a long time, often having detrimental threats to the child's future. It harms their physical, psychological, and emotional well-being, and in many cases ends their lives. The United Nations International Children's Fund, together with several children's rights groups, last week released their latest statistics of violence against children on the African continent. More than 1 million children across the continent reached out to Childline for help, with the majority of claims being about physical abuse, followed by neglect. Now, joining us from our Sea Point studios is the Men's Care Governance and Media Manager of the Sonke Gender Justice Formation, Patrick Godana. A very good morning to you, Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Morning to you, sir. Morning to the viewers at home. And thank you for having me.
What is the most alarming findings of this report, Patrick?
Well, the data that has been just released shows us that we have reached an epidemic of scourge of violence against children in our beautiful continent, Africa.
Now the Action of Violence Against Children regional campaign was launched last week. What does this campaign mean for South Africa specifically?
Yes, indeed, we launched the campaign on action against violence on children, and we hosted it on the 17th here in South Africa. You will remember that South Africa is one of the countries that are very passionate about human rights, and human rights are children's rights as well. And as a country, we are indeed want to ensure that violence against children is something of the past. If you allow me to quote the expression made by the Minister of Social Development, Minister Batabile Dlamini, she expressed concern on the level of violence towards children at home. And she committed herself to push through Parliament a legislation that will actually end violence against children in our households.
Across the continent, what is the most prevalent form of abuse with regards to children? Is it assaults from family members? What are the statistics and the report saying?
Well, there is damning evidence that has been just released by Zambia Health and Wellness program, where it tells that 1 out of 3 children in that land, a beautiful land, Zambia, are actually abused at the hands of adult person. But also 1 in 5 children are sexually abused at the hands of the adult person. And this is really a damning report. But also if you go to places like Tanzania, you will find similar occurrences where the value of children is not being valued the most. Children at a very tender age are said to be taken for early marriages, and children, 1 out of 7 in Tanzania are facing sexual assault. But also if you go to Malawi, you'll find very close similar occurrences. 1 out of 3 children in Malawi are actually physically abused by adult person. 1 out of 5 children are sexually molested or abused by adult person. Therefore, it means that children are not safe, and this time around are not safe in the hands of adult persons who are supposedly to be giving care and guidance to them.
Patrick, it is very concerning if we see across the continent, the numbers are showing that sexual abuse against girls are going up. Physical abuse against boys are going up. We continually see UNICEF and the like, and individual countries, we see campaigns that are being run against this kind of behavior. Are these campaigns then failing?
Well, I cannot say that the campaigns are failing, but one can proudly say these campaigns are actually gaining momentum, because with what we've done last week was meant to create awareness to the public domain, but also garner support from the public political figures so that they can have a buy-in in this fight that we are actually waging in terms of the prevention of violence against children. Again, also, this is a kind of an appeal, particularly to traditional leaders, the gatekeepers of our own traditions and customs, who are very passionate about the beating of children as a way of socialization. And in that, we are making inroads. And I must say to you, for too long, inflicting pain towards children as a form of raising them has been a kind of an accepted norm. And we are now trying to say, no. This is not good for the child, because we are sending confusing messages, because violence is wrong, and we are beating them. And we are also saying, in terms of building future leaders of the country and responsible citizens of the future, we are harming and hurting them. At the end of the day, we shall be confronted by citizens that are very much angry, who sit with emotional scars that needed to be healed long ago.
Now, Patrick, do you believe enough is being done around the continent, not just in South Africa, to remove children from these abusive environments?
Well, that's not enough what is being done across the length and breadth of our own continent. We want to see political leaders speaking about the violence against children as a developmental issue. We want to see traditional leaders, we want to see faith-based leaders across the board in whatever platform they are using, taking matters of violence against children very serious. And not unless we can see that kind of level of creating awareness across the spectrum, we shall then enough has been done. But for now, we want to see more. It's not enough to have all the laws, it's not enough to have all the treaties and all the universal declaration, and yet when you look at the plight of children, children are not safe at the hands of those who are supposed to be protecting them.
What about those that are already been affected and mental health issues that play out? How do we deal with the psychological scars of what we're talking about?
That's a very serious issue that we really need to look at, you know, because when a child is exposed to high levels of violence, that child is likely to repeat when he or she becomes an adult person. Therefore, it becomes imperative for families who have such challenges to begin to take children of that nature to centers that will actually assist in terms of psychological healing. Also, you can even consult with faith-based organizations where they do proper counseling in terms of emotional healing, because we cannot downplay the huge damage that we are doing as we are raising our children in the form of beating them. We need to really ensure that in every centers that are available in our own countries, we utilize them so that our children, they develop also emotionally and also mentally.
Patrick Godana, thank you very much for joining us, talking about, the rise in violence against children across the continent, reported this week, this weekend.
Pleasure is mine, sir.
Thank you once again. By UNICEF. Now, of course, the COSATU conference is taking place this week here in South Africa, and much has been said about it. We ask you the question today, your expectations of the COSATU conference this week. That's our question of the day. We want you to interact with us with regards to this. What are your expectations of this week's COSATU conference? Of course, many people talking about the cracks in the alliance and other matters that are on everyone's lips now. Our very own reporter, Aldrin St-Pierre, looks back at the formation of COSATU in 1985 and where the Federation finds itself as it celebrates its 30th anniversary.
The year is 1985. A call in isiZulu. This is our country. Workers, let's unite. "760 delegates from 33 unions gathered in Durban for COSATU's inaugural conference.
Some workers were suspicious of the others, and some people felt that they would be dominated by this group. But over time, when we discussed this, and it became clear to the workers that nobody wanted to dominate the other. The only thing we wanted is that workers should get together.
A giant had risen. It had a double-edged sword, fighting both the employer and the apartheid regime.
PW Porter, usulakela emsebenzini wakhe. Ngakho khulula uNelson Rolihlahla Mandela azoba state president.
As the struggle for liberation was being waged, COSATU, which knew all too well there's power in unity, joined the ANC and the SACP. The tripartite alliance was born in all its diversity. Then NUM General Secretary Cyril Ramaphosa was clear that the relationship won't be smooth.
We know that on a number of issues right now, COSATU and the ANC are able to reach agreement. But in time, even if there is an ANC government, there may well be a time when we will differ. Once the ANC is in power, we will be able to join the ANC where we agree, and where we do not agree, we will make it very clear to the ANC as a government that we do not agree, and we are going to put pressure on an ANC government to ensure that the rights of workers remain prominent and are treated with the respect that they deserve.
More than 20 years on, the militancy of COSATU has come under scrutiny.
When the history is written on what happened to a young, militant, unique, democratic, fighting trade union movement that offered such a resemblance to an ideal trade union that everybody in the world is aspiring to build, I have no doubt that the historians will say the General Secretary of the Federation was not an angel, for no one is an angel, and that he committed few mistakes himself, just like others committed even greater number of mistakes.
COSATU's frustration over economic policy gear saw the Federation move into uncharted territory. In 2007, ahead of the Polokwane conference, COSATU spearheaded the ANC's leadership campaign.
You would remember that Thabo Mbeki had to leave. We were at the center of that to influence within the movement. But after Thabo Mbeki left, we expected that the Liberation Alliance with JZ being at the helm with Gwede Mantashe from the National Union of Mine Workers, we expected that this comrade must then implement a revolutionary program. And a revolutionary program for us, it meant dumping GIA, which was a macroeconomic framework that had failed.
Since the Nelson Mandela administration to date, several former unionists have featured in Parliament and the executive. Even in the ANC leadership, all three Secretary Generals since 1991 are former NUM General Secretaries. Kgalemo Motlanthe even going as far as occupying the highest seat in the country. And even then, influencing ANC policy has not been a smooth ride. COSATU is still trying to convince the ruling party to ban labour brokering and e-tolls. And now with the implementation of the National Development Plan, critics are warning the rift is getting wider. For instance, in this book, Who Rules South Africa, the authors do acknowledge that the tripartite alliance won't be easily dismembered and has remarkably shown durability over difficult periods. However, though, they do write, if COSATU does not see some of its demands met in the near future and matters proceed as they are, a split becomes increasingly likely. And that's the other debate. Is COSATU's allegiance to the tripartite alliance still bearing fruit for the working class?
NUMSA took a resolution to say, this alliance is not working. We will tell our federation and raise a debate that the federation must debate, and our view, we think that we should break the ties.
Well, as far we still hold a view, and this remains our Congress decisions as far that we should remain in COSATU for starters, but secondly, that COSATU should remain in the alliance. However, in the alliance, COSATU must remain independent.
There is a place for COSATU under the South African sun, be it in the alliance or outside the alliance. But what I'm saying is nobody should sacrifice worker unity on the altar of political choices.
With 1.8 million members, COSATU certainly still has a place under the sun. But do all its affiliates still have a place in COSATU?
There will be a side that says, look, there is democracy in COSATU, and lots of it. There is tolerance in COSATU, lots of it.
But NUMSA disagrees. It became the first affiliate to be expelled from the federation. It was an unprecedented move, that even former President Motlanthe criticized. Its 340,000 members were sent packing for refusing to support the ANC's 2014 election campaign.
When we formed COSATU in 1985, we had workers as members of different unions who supported the ANC, some of whom were members of the UDF. There were also members of AZAPO, members of Inkatha at the time, in KwaZulu-Natal and other parts of the country. And we didn't talk about membership of political organizations.
Another first, the expulsion of a COSATU General Secretary. Zwelinzima Vavi's sexual encounter with a junior colleague has now landed him in the political wilderness.
When history is written, I have no doubt that that history will absolve me. And they will say, the historians, that I was on the right side of history.
While both Vavi and NUMSA want to appeal the expulsion, they still have sympathizers in COSATU.
We felt a bit disappointed by the decision of NUMSA to basically stop proceeding with their application for an appeal. However, we respect the decision they've taken because, you know, as an autonomous union, they're entitled to take such a decision. But that doesn't stop us as FAO and certainly as other unions to raise the matter still at COSATU that the return of NUMSA remains critical if indeed we are all serious about the unity of workers.
Vavi might be out of COSATU, but he's not off the hook. A forensic report on the Federation's finances implicates the former General Secretary, and the Federation has already promised to lay criminal charges against him.
Good morning. They have tried to smear and throw allegations of office building, theft and money. Can't prove it. They said to you they were investigating criminal charges. Why don't you ask them what happened to their criminal charges? Can you go there now and ask, where is the criminal charges?
The trend of unions launching investment arms started in the mid-1990s. Among those in the financial market is the NUM, which owns the Mine Workers Investment Arm, and PopCrew, which owns PopCrew Group of Companies.
The subscription alone cannot actually sustain an affiliate, because you look into the spending, in particular when we take matters to the arbitration, you go to the High Court, you go to the Labour Court, and ultimately end to the Constitutional Court. The cost thereof cannot sustain any of the affiliates if they don't sustain themselves in terms of at least looking into how do they operate on business ventures.
20 years ago, COSATU would have decided that let us occupy that space for the empowerment of the workers. How much we have gained or how much workers have benefited out of that, or are we not experiencing a situation where that has tended to be a poison that destroys our unions because leaders are fighting over access to those resources?
Leading to splits. Municipal Workers Union SAMU split twice this year. This has also led to COSATU missing its target of 4 million members by 2015. With competition getting tighter on the shop floor and retrenchments, it's time for serious introspection. Aldrin St-Pierre, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Staying with that story, COSATU's elective conference starts in Midrand this morning, north of Johannesburg. The Federation's president, Zdumo Dlamini, says that escalation of tensions between leaders is weakening the ANC's tripartite alliance. The conference will be the first without its biggest former affiliate, NUMSA, and the former General Secretary, Zwelinzima Vavi. Let's now join in on the proceedings live.
Well, thanks very much to Elvis. We're coming to you live from Gallagher Estates, and that is where COSATU's elective conference is expected to get underway any minute from now. But as things stand, the Congress hasn't as yet started. But I am joined here in our makeshift studio by COSATU's second vice president, and that is Zingiswa Losi. Just to pick up from Aldrin's piece, it's time for some introspection, with many people, of course, doubting as to whether that indeed is what will happen.
Thank you very much for having me, Budvuyo. This Congress is about that introspection. COSATU unions have to look into what have been the challenges in the past 3 years. What is it that we have learned, and what is it that we need to do to change things around? It has to be about workers and what workers need to benefit, belonging to trade unions, belonging to the federation. We are not denying that, and we're not denying that the federation has faced some challenges in the past term. But this Congress is a Congress that has to give a direction to the next coming 3 years of the federation, and even going beyond that, because you would appreciate that COSATU is turning 30 years this year, and we need to do an introspection that is building the federation, and I guess that's what this Congress is about.
Well, I guess, as a leader in your own right, you do have some views, perhaps answers to the very questions that you are raising. In your own analysis, where did the wheels come off? Where did it all go wrong?
Look, my analysis has been that, and I guess it is what COSATU has even agreed, that this is where the challenges of COSATU emanated from. It emanated from, one example, personality cults. That when you want to believe that only an individual can become a federation, that when that individual begins to take a different shift from what the federation stands for, then we then assume that the entire federation has reached a state of collapse. Secondly, it is what COSATU has always said, that it is that gap that continues to exist between workers and leaders. Leaders, we always want to refer to the first line of leadership being shop stewards, and you go up with the structures of the trade union. Thirdly, it could be also as a result of poor service to members. And another issue, but not the last one, is the issue of investment companies, as the Congress has to look into that, because investment companies are not an evil thing, Budvuyo. They are good at a point because they allow members to have extended benefits than what employers are offering. We have good examples of trade unions who have good financial and stable investment companies. The problem is when leaders tend to then fight over such resources and forget that these resources belong to members and not to themselves as leaders. And I guess this Congress will be dealing with those issues.
Well, let's pick up on that very last point and perhaps work our way backwards to the very first issues that you raised. How did we get to that point? Because there's a reality that I think everyone understands, that it's going to be extremely difficult for unions to rely solely on subscriptions. I think that has been proven beyond doubt. When you look at court cases and how expensive they can become, campaigns and how expensive campaigns can become. But what went wrong in how these investment companies conduct themselves? In your analysis, what exactly went wrong?
I guess it as I've said, that there are trade unions in COSATU that have good investment companies. The challenges, one would say that you would pick that it is because when people have access, leadership elected is able to have a signing off probably to how resources are shared, then everyone wants to become a leader, not because the interest is about serving the workers, but the interest is about putting my hands in the cookie jar. Because once you become a leader, probably you will sit in a certain board, you would get some payment of sitting in a board. I'm not quite familiar with what leaders get when they sit in those boards, but what I have observed is that the tendency would be that the fight about union resources is who is going to lead the union. At the center of it is, when I get to lead this trade union, then it will mean I would be having some benefits, or I would be able to have some signing powers, which probably would enable me. Others would have probably some businesses that would get them some lucrative deals in how that investment company gets business. But it could be a perception. But this is why we said this Congress must get to the real cause of why trade unions are having some difficulties when it comes to, or why unions would have massive divisions as a result of investment companies.
But then why aren't you, one would have thought that as leaders you would have come to this Congress with at least having analyzed that problem thoroughly, and perhaps having learned from some of the decisions that you've taken. I mean, COSATU seems to be, killing the goose that is laying the golden eggs by, for example, getting rid of, doing away with Kopano Kimatla. Personally, I just don't think it's probably it's the best decision. But then maybe someone like me is not informed. Why not deal with the problems from where they emanate instead of killing the investment arms? Because truth be told, that is why even NUMSA, for example, is able to do the things that it is able to do now, because it is cash flushed, because it is able to work independently. In other words, the investment arms, if there's one thing the investment arms have done, it has been to free the unions and to allow you to actually take on more campaigns, to allow you to be self-sufficient. So why kill Kopano, for example, as COSATU?
Look, even the issue of Kopano is going to be an issue for this Congress. But as you said, that we are trying to find the cause than dealing with the symptoms.
But you've already taken a decision.
Look, Putvuyo, when it is like the call of nationalization of mines, when you know that you cannot nationalize mines that are already dead, you need to say, is it viable? Because you're talking about workers' money. Is it viable to continue to have this investment company rather than finding a way? If you have to do away with it, what do you do with the resources? But surely when you take that decision, it will be a decision that is informed by the mistakes that you would have made. For an example, COSATU, we are honest with the fact that we did not have, for an example, trustees or board members in Kopano. Kopano has been solely run by two individuals who took decisions on their behalf, upon themselves, on behalf of the entire federation. Now, those decisions seemingly have not been decisions that were beneficiary to ourselves. And we're saying we should be able, as trade unions, learn from these mistakes and not repeat them. And I agree with you.
Maybe you were sleeping on the job. In other words, you didn't hold these two individuals to account, and you should take responsibility for that.
No, we do. We do take responsibility, and we have even said, as the Central Executive Committee, it is important that already now we have registered trustees. We have acknowledged as a federation that in relation to these issues of administration, indeed, we trusted each other too much, that if you are given this responsibility, that we know that you will be doing it in the interest of the federation, only to realize later that things have not been as we have been made to believe. And we are saying as a federation, trade unions must learn from these mistakes that COSATU has made, because these investment companies has a purpose of them, as you have quite clarified, and was saying at the center of it, it must be about benefits to members. members, their families may not be able to take their kids to universities, and that's the reason why you would have investment companies. For an example, as I've said, NUM is a good example. Pope Crew and others are good example of such investment companies that have been able to invest in the future of their own members and the families. So indeed, introspection, indeed, this Congress will have to give us a direction on how we should move forward, not dismantling everything, but saying what is the root cause and how do we learn from it, how do we correct it and move forward in building strong investment companies that are not self-centered, driven by certain individuals, but that will have that interest, which is a mandate, of course, from members.
Well, another issue you're raising is an issue that is going to be looked at thoroughly at this Congress is the issue of how poorly many of you have serviced your membership. Again, how did that happen? How did unions, affiliate unions and a federation that really, took that to heart and focused on that from the time it was formed? Where did you lose the plot?
Woodvuyo, for an example, we said part of the issues that this Congress will be looking at is the 2015 plan, which was adopted in 2003 Congress, which said that by this year, COSATU should be at 4 million in terms of membership, and we are not here close to that.
Well, you can't, especially after losing 340,000 members.
Yes, indeed, but pity about that is that you cannot separate leaders from members. So the big issue has been that how do you expel 340,000 members? Leadership of NUMSA have always said in the CEC, we speak on behalf of our constituency. We represent a mandate. So if that mandate is a mandate that contradicts the constitution of the federation, contradicts the policies of the federation, what decision do you take? Do you then say we will deal with the leadership but absolve members because we believe these leaders do not take their mandate from members? They are saying we are a mandated leadership. So once they put a decision here...
Are they wrong?
They're not wrong at all. They're not wrong at all. But what we are saying that there is a federation. A decision that gets taken by a trade union, it becomes your decision as a trade union. It is not a federation decision until it gets tested in the federation and the federation takes a decision. It becomes a decision of the federation even if it is not your mandate that you came with in COSATU. So the problem that we had with NUMSA is that NUMSA wanted to impose the NEC decisions of NUMSA into COSATU. Then you're going to have challenges because once COSATU takes a decision, even if the decision that you came with in the CEC is not the one that is taken, but this one is the decision that binds you. So we always say, for an example, trade unions are coming to this Congress. They have had their own congresses. They have had their own NECs. So they are coming with different mandates on different issues. This Congress will debate each and every item. A decision will be taken. Once that decision gets taken, whatever mandate that you came with in this Congress does not matter anymore because a Congress decision becomes your decision. So we would always have challenges, Budvuyo, if leaders want to have autonomy even above decisions of the federation. Because once you are an affiliate, you are binded by the decisions that are taken in the federation, unless you are not a member.
Well, from what analysts and pundits, who are outside of COSATU, many of whom, it must be said, do actually have the interests of the workers first and foremost. And from what Sidney Mufamadi in that inset was saying, the issue really was never about an affiliate that was keen to pursue its own mandated position as an affiliate, even if it was at the expense of the federation. At the core of the differences that have played themselves out has actually been politics more than anything else, which drove a Sidney Mufamadi to say it is wrong for a COSATU to actually sacrifice worker unity at the altar, as he puts it, of politics, and probably politics and nothing else?
It is good when you get such responses from former leaders, because this federation does not get to part ways for the first time with 340,000 members. Numbers may be an issue, but the principle is a trade union. If we are going to play number games, then we are not being principled. Once a trade union, for an example, we have always said as COSATU that there are a number of trade unions that have lost their affiliation to COSATU for simple reason that they could not afford to pay an affiliation fee. The constitution is very clear, and the very same CC, when NUMSA was part of those decisions, took a very serious decision to say you can't be found wanting as leadership of the federation on these matters. The constitution is very clear. If a federation cannot pay its affiliation fee, that union ceases to be a member of this federation. Now, we can't then, when we want to play numbers, twist the issue of principle to become politics. There is a decision of a federation. There is a constitution which governs where you should organize. So there are founding principles of this federation. We, the current leadership, found them here. Now we have a responsibility to defend those founding principles. NUMSA has then gone and violated those founding principles. What do you then expect COSATU to do? To then massage that matter and say, no, because of 340,000, we will sacrifice the founding principles. You must then respond to the others that are going to say, so we should also do likewise. But also the issue would be, where is consistency on these matters? The principle, the consistency. Now, it cannot be now about politics. Because when COSATU took a decision to expel NUMSA, it did not expel NUMSA because NUMSA took a decision in the Special National Congress not to support the African National Congress. COSATU was very clear. NUMSA was expelled because they have violated the founding principles of the federation by taking a decision and implementing that decision. Because before NUMSA could implement that decision, we had engagements with NUMSA to say, but the decision that you have taken in your Special National Congress is in contravention of the founding principles. We're giving you an opportunity to change that decision, or at least not to implement it.
But then there are people who say, but two wrongs don't make it right. That's assuming NUMSA was wrong. If you take your example, your union takes you out. And then you run to another union, and then something is being fixed unprocedurally, as some people would say. Again, a break with tradition, a break probably with the rules even, but it was made to happen.
Let me also clarify this issue. NUMSA never expelled me. I resigned at the workplace that I was employed at. I was never expelled by NUMSA. I never went to any disciplinary hearing of NUMSA. No records at NUMSA will ever show that there was ever a disciplinary hearing which led to the expulsion of Losi. I think that issue needs to really be clarified.
Well, simple to put it, someone would say, but it was all cooked, just so that it gets to happen, it gets to happen now, and then we deal with it.
I'll explain the rest of how the process went. But I want to clarify this issue that Losi was expelled by NUMSA. I resigned in the workplace because I had found an alternative employment. Now, the Constitution does not talk about when you leave, change employment. But that matter was the matter that the CEC then debated, because what I did, having changed employment, I then wrote to the national office bearers of COSATU to let them know that I have changed employment. And this issue may be an issue that will affect the position that I'm holding. And I wanted then the national office bearers, through the office of the General Secretary, to write a report to the CEC, which indeed that report was given to the April CEC in 2013. The CEC, instead of dealing with the matter, because it was when the ANC made an intervention, said the second deputy president of COSATU, because we are parking all matters, remains the second deputy president of COSATU until the CEC deals with the issue. Now, when the CEC dealt with the matter, it was in November, during that special CEC that NUMSA was expelled. The CEC then said there is a precedence in COSATU where when a leader changes employment, it does not affect a position. They put a number of those precedences. And they said the Constitution does not talk about changing of employment. As a result, the CC said we shall then take that precedence that was used in the Federation. This Congress must talk to that, because then it falls into the interpretation of the Constitution, which it says the CEC in between Congresses has a power to interpret the Constitution. We then came, Pudvuyo, to the Special National Congress. The issue of the second deputy president was raised on credentials. The Special National Congress clarified the issue that the second deputy president of COSATU has the right to be here because she forms part of this Congress. We are now in the ordinary Congress. We will allow the ordinary Congress to deal with that matter. But when it was dealt with, leadership looked into the precedents, leadership looked into various issues, and the decision was then taken, which was tested in the Special National Congress. But now we are in the ordinary Congress. We will allow if that issue arises for this Congress. But what we know, our term comes to an end. This Congress, we are here to present a report of the previous term. The new leadership will have to emerge. We don't know who shall emerge, but whoever that emerges, it will be because those that emerges are in compliance of the Constitution. So this is what will be preoccupying this National Congress.
Are you in the running?
Yes.
For any position? Which one?
We prefer to keep that, but we have been nominated. But indeed, let me say, it is not the one that the media has been speculating about.
Well, people have obviously approached you and they've said things, so I want you to stand for position X. Which one is it?
You're really putting me on the spot, Pudvuyo, here.
We're open, we're transparent here.
The position that I was nominated on is the current position that I'm seated at.
And you're available for that?
The second deputy president. We will have to deal with it when the IEC ask that question. Of course, I cannot respond to the media pertaining to that question. Let the IEC ask the question and let the nominee respond accordingly. We don't want to undermine Congress delegates because it is their Congress. So I guess it will be out of respect for Congress that I should allow that process to unfold and let me respond to that question when it is asked by the IEC.
Is there only one position that you've been approached for?
Yes.
Just one?
Just one.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, the second deputy president of the Congress of South African Trade Unions, Zingiswa Losi. Well, with that, I'm going to hand over to Dum, who's on the other side where things are supposed to have to be happening or about to happen. He'll give us an update as to whether we're going to start anytime soon.
Well, thank you very much, Vuyo. Well, I could tell you that here in the hall at Gallagher Estate in Midrand, the mood is very electric. Delegates have been singing, and as we speak, they are marching across the floor carrying their various unions, placards, and making their voices heard quite literally. This is something that has become quite customary at COSATU events, national elective congresses, and various unions' own individual congresses So the members here are very keen to keep that tradition going and doing a great job at it. I could say now the hall is about 2/3 full. Earlier, officials told me that we expect at full capacity about over 2,500, between 2,000 and 3,000 delegates expected to pack the hall here. They've been streaming in very steadily, and they have really raised the roof here as they wait for the Congress of COSATU's electoral Congress to begin. But back to the issue at hand. Among those delegates, we have representatives from the Southern Africa Trade Union Coordination Council, which has also come out here to show support. Mr. Muneko, firstly, why was it important for you to be here as a member of SATUC?
Maybe let me explain SATUC. SATUC stands for the Southern African Trade Union Coordination Council. And the COSATU is one of the affiliates of this council, which brings together all major trade union federations within the SADC region, currently representing 21 national federations in 14 SADC countries. So as our affiliate, we feel obliged to be in this Congress and offer solidarity to COSATU on behalf of all the 21 affiliates which we have within SADC.
Right. Much has been said about the trade union movement globally and whether it is still relevant in a modern society, ever-changing. We have issues of labor brokerage that is affecting membership, that is affecting operations of trade unions. Are trade union federations really what they used to be, and do they still represent the best interest of the workers?
I think unions are still very relevant now, and as they have been before. The question of the change in work patterns and the growth in casualization, labor brokering, in itself shows the need why we need to consolidate the union movement so that workers have their rights defended and protected. In the SADC itself at the regional level, in 2014, the SADC summit in Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe adopted and endorsed the protocol, the SADC protocol on employment and labor, which brings first and foremost the rights of workers at the forefront of anything else. And that means the unions now are empowered by this instrument within the SADC to advocate and advance those rights of the workers. As such, I feel they are more relevant now that workers are under threat, that workers are under siege from all these emerging new forms of work organization, including labor brokerage.
So would you then say, having said that workers are now under siege, that trade union federations are losing their grip on power, not only globally, but also in Africa?
Well, I wouldn't say, first and foremost, we need to know what trade unions are. Trade unions are nothing but the totality of the membership which they bring around them. And if its membership is under siege, it means them also as organizations, they are impacted negatively. And what we are doing now is to rethink and revive our union movement so that we are able to confront these new emerging challenges arising out of the new forms of work which are arising. And it is this phenomena which we need to be awake to and be able to address and confront. That's why we cannot confront these phenomena individually, but we need a collective, and that can only be done through growing and strengthening our union movement. So unions still remain very relevant in our dispensation, and they will still remain as such.
All right, we'll leave it there. I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Frans Baleni, who is the former Secretary General of the National Union of Mine Workers, one of the biggest affiliates in COSATU as well. Mr. Baleni, from your perspective, where is COSATU right now? Is COSATU a labor federation movement on the rocks?
Look, as an observer here, the trade unions in South Africa are confronted by many challenges. Firstly, we've got a declining economy, not only in South Africa, but globally. And then the second issue is the level of division and fragmentation within the labor movement. So COSATU has to reposition itself to an extent that it can open its hand, link up with other unions. There is that anger of those who are about to form their own thing. We are hopeful that once that anger has disappeared, the workers must come together.
And talking about the anger and COSATU's position within the tripartite alliance, one of the key members in terms of helping the ruling ANC during election time to maintain its grip on power. Now we see anger fracturing COSATU. Will that have a knock-on effect in terms of negatively influencing the outcome at the polls when the ANC goes to contest the election?
Clearly, if workers, as a strong constituency, it's divided, it will have a bearing on the outcomes of those elections. But it's important that Labour organize itself to an extent that it influence the right politics to ensure that their interests are advanced, their interests are not compromised. In politics, you will never get anything 100% you want, because it's not like collective bargaining. Politics is the art of the possible, and therefore COSATU must be able to nurture, help assist the ANC to ensure that the ANC does not go to the right, but it remains biased to the working class.
And having been a very influential player within the structures and seen the impact of this crossover between politics and trade union federations' core mandate, which is to fight for workers' rights. Isn't this correlation or cross-pollination of these ideologies really what has caused the problems that COSATU now faces?
The labour movement must focus on its core business of rendering service to members. But at the same time, trade unions cannot be about helmet and gumboots. It must ensure that it contributes, it plays a role in politics. Politics shape our lives. Politics are the workplace, policy formulation, laws. If you are going to lock yourself and claim to be neutral and not be political activists, others will influence the political path and you'll complain later.
All right. Mr. Baleni, always a pleasure. Thank you for speaking to us. Well, that was Frans Baleni, the former General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, one of the strongest and biggest affiliates here in COSATU. And with that, I'll throw to you, Vuyo.
Well, thanks very much, Tum. Well, good to see Frans Baleni, one of the former leaders of the National Union of Mine Workers, here. According to him, as an observer. Well, we're waiting for the start to COSATU's conference here in Midrand at Galaga Estates. It looks like the hall is indeed filling up right now, so we're expecting them to start any time from now. It does look like most or almost all the affiliates are now already have gone into the plenary hall, which is where proceedings are expected to get underway as soon as, I would imagine, they can get some kind of a quorum. Speaking earlier to COSATU's second deputy president, Zingi Swalosi, outlining some of the issues that she believes will be tackled here or just simply have to be tackled here at this Congress. She did really speak to quite a number of issues that she believes would really have to be tackled here if this Congress is going to be the success that many people, certainly COSATU affiliates and COSATU's leadership would want it to be. Among the issues that we spoke about, she did highlight the issue of cult that she believes is an issue that needs to be tackled, but also the poor servicing of membership, as well, of course, as investment arms that she believes has really caused or been cause of quite a great deal of consternation among and within COSATU's affiliates. Well, I'm joined here in our makeshift studio by the president of POPCRU, the Police and Civil Rights Union, Mr. Zizamele Tebekulu, who is going to take us through just some of the issues that his own union feels strongly about and are bringing to this Congress. From where POPCRU sits, what are the issues for you?
Well, thank you to SABC and your listeners. I think there are a few issues that we're very strong on as an organization. Amongst those that we have, I think we have the issue which rides above everyone, which is the unity and cohesion of COSATU. I think that is one important issue that we are bringing, because without that unity, your internal solidarity, your local solidarity becomes weak on issues that confront you at your work situation. Therefore, we need it more than any other thing to happen, and also go to the real evolution process of COSATU. We feel that COSATU must change. COSATU must change the way we are doing things. We must change them. The way we're approaching issues, we must change. We must change as a federation, and put all our efforts on dealing with, I would say 70% of our efforts in dealing with workers' issues. And
presumably that's an acknowledgement that
yes,
at the moment you are hardly devoting as much time to real worker issues as you should be doing.
As we should be doing. That is what we need to change.
What are you spending your time on?
I would say, let me take I talk about the evolution process of COSATU. Not per se making an admission to what you say, but what I'm saying is that looking at the numbers that are coming into COSATU, and on a more special that we decided upon that we'll be achieving that landmark by this Congress.
4 million.
Yes, we're very far. We're very far from that, and it shows.
And you've just gotten rid of 340,000 people as well.
It shows that we have to do something in terms of dealing with bringing members to COSATU. Affiliates must do their job, and COSATU itself have to change itself as an apex structure that deals with certain structures of negotiations, and they must prepare themselves to be a machinery. One that is a competitor in the space. Two, that is focused in dealing with workers' issues. And yes, we have to participate politically. Political participation as an alliance member or integral part of the tripartite alliance. Participate, but our focus must not be solely to deal with political matters and leave issues that concerns workers. That is what we want.
Isn't the problem, though? Isn't the problem with the way you've actually handled this issue? Because when COSATU started, and when decisions were taken, that you cannot artificially or geographically divide the life of a worker. The same worker who's exploited on the factory floor is the same worker who has to trudge home to inhumane living conditions. That was the rationale behind tackling socio-economic issues and being part of people's everyday struggle. But the problem, it would seem, has been with how your generation, the current generation of leaders, has actually handled that issue. In other words, there doesn't seem to be anything inherently wrong with the approach that COSATU decided at the beginning, but it is how your generation has come to handle that issue. Isn't that the problem?
I would say, partly I agree with you that the manner in which some people perceive us as the manner in which we dealt with issues that were confronting us was not correct. But remember, there are many things that influence change. There are many things that influence change. And from the outside and internal environmental factors that you look at and say, but this thing can be dealt with in this manner based on the challenges that are facing you. We can't pretend as if things are normal and as our predecessors decided upon something and we have to adhere on them. There are situations that need you to move a little bit, you understand, in dealing with issues. And coming back to the issue that you say we've just let 340 workers away. No, we did not. We did not. We tried everything at our best to make sure that those 340 workers remain within COSATU. But COSATU, which have got its own founding principle, as you say, and we tried everything. It took us many months to deal with the situation. But when people are decided, they've decided. And raising issues that are outside us, and you feel that that person, whatever is doing, is trying to come up with some ground to justify his action or her action of leaving COSATU. He has already decided and made up his mind. Whatever you are doing, we are wasting his or her time. That is what has happened. Not really that we have sat down and say all the workers must go away. Not that way. And as we are speaking, we are making every means in making sure that workers are united.
Well, it does seem that things are going to start pretty soon. Now we're seeing the president of COSATU, Duma Dlamini, about to get to the podium. One last question, very brief answer from me. Do you believe, is the door closed completely? Do you not foresee any situation wherein the people here would say, at this Congress would say, maybe we should bury the hatchet and maybe try, even if it's for the last time, to reach out to those that are outside? Does that possibility exist, even remotely?
That possibility exists, as I say. We're striving for unity and cohesion of COSATU. Even for those that are outside, let them come back, and not on our term, but on a negotiated terms.
So that door is still open?
That door is still open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kulu.
Thank you.
The president of Pope Cruel. We are going to be here the whole time. We'll be bringing you live that opening session of COSATU's elective Congress. For now, though, and we've got to pay the bills, so we're going to take a quick break. After that break, we will be back, hopefully, with this Congress will indeed be starting soon thereafter.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
The judge slammed corruption in both the private and public sector. Referring to irregular and wasteful government expenditure, he said it could no longer go on.
The high-profile corruption scandal has dominated Spain's headlines in recent weeks. The scandal touching a nerve as Spain emerges from its downturn after a slew of corruption cases involving politicians and the king's sister.
Tourism is a vital part of the economy. It contributes about 5% to the country's GDP and is a significant contributor to various industries such as food production, retail and transport.
For all your business news, stay tuned to your favorite channel, SABC News, at 1 Monday to Friday.
Morning Live sets the agenda for the day.
We bring you the latest local and international news.
We are on the ball with all your sports activities and results.
We give you the latest business update.
We bring you the latest weather every time.
Watch Morning Live every weekday morning at 6 o'clock, bringing you everything you need to know before you go. Sharp, sharp, 8 tada.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sello Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
The son of Africa, Trevor Noah, is leaving America in stitches.
I never dreamed that I would one day have, well, two things really. An indoor toilet and a job as host of The Daily Show.
We are the first to bring you the latest films around the globe.
Dear white people, the minimum requirement of black friends needed to not seem racist has just been raised to 2.
Cobbins Esako is a gifted blind musician, a master of soothing notes from the piano.
And I love to sit behind the piano. You know, that also helps me find inspiration.
Join Refulo Mulwa every Friday for that 1-hour weekly dose of art and entertainment news at 9 p.m. on Trends.